The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 17. The plotter behind the scene. The old woman was well into her 60s, her head was full of gray hair. Her age and physical strength were obviously not enough to allow her to move fast, but she still did her best and move her feet as swiftly as possible. As she passed through the dense courtyard, she was very soon panting for breath, sweat was pouring off her forehead. "Oh, Nanny Kui. Where did you come from? Here, let's wipe the sweat off your forehead." Xianxia lifted the curtain to walk out and saw Nanny Kui's sweaty appearance and hastily took out a handkerchief from her lapel and handed it over to her. This woman was an important person amongst the entourage of the young mistress who had even been sent over along with her dowry. Even the head maid could not afford to offend her. Nanny Kui didn't seem to notice Xianxia's gesture of goodwill and instead promptly asked her, "Has the young mistress woken up yet?" Xianxia looked a bit displeased, but she forced a smile and replied, "Yes, she had just woken up. If there is anything, let me go back in and report it to her." The old woman had an anxious expression as she said, "No need. Since she's already awake, I'll just go in and speak with her myself." Upon saying so, she immediately lifted the curtain herself and went in without even giving Xianxia an opportunity to say anything else. Xianxia couldn't do anything but stomped her feet in annoyance and followed her inside. Upon entering the room, Nanny Kui saw the young woman seated before a dressing table who was holding a mirror to look at her own reflection while a young maid was behind her, slowly combing her hair. "Young mistress," Nanny Kui hurriedly walked over, not even bothering to catch her breath. Zheng soon looked back and was a bit surprised when she saw Nanny Kui's sweaty appearance. She then ordered the other two, Xianxia, Xiaoyao, "Both of you can go ahead first." The two maidservants both acknowledged the order and withdrew. It wasn't as if Nanny Chu didn't notice the displeased look in Xianxia's eyes before she left, but she wasn't in the mood to bicker with the younger maid over trivial rivalry over their mistress' affection. As soon as the two left, she deliberately walked over and closed the door and then completely stopped, hiding how anxious she was feeling. "Young mistress, they have arrested Feng Qingzi." Lady Sun's hand that was holding the comb shook and fell. "Who are they?" "The Northern Administrative Court Division's people." Lady Sun mumbled to herself unintelligibly. Nanny Kui hurriedly continued, "You know as well as I do that the Jinyue's interrogation methods were most abominable. I'm not sure if they would be able to pry something out of her mouth, but if they did, it will be terrible." However, Lady Sun was much calmer than Nanny Kui expected as she asked, "When was she arrested?" Nanny Kui, "Just yesterday." Lady Sun thought for a while and said, "It doesn't matter. Feng Qingzi doesn't know where her brother is being kept. It's useless to interrogate her. Even if Feng Qingzi admits her connection with us, there's no proof. We are ladies from the Marquis of Wu'an's estate. They cannot just come in and question us." Nanny Kui's face was snow white and she didn't speak. Lady Sun realized from her expression that something was wrong and thus inquired, "Nanny Kui, what's wrong?" Nanny Kui slowly opened her mouth to say, "Young mistress, after hearing this news, I was worried that there was a change on Feng Qingzi's side, so I deliberately took a long detour and went to have a look around that mansion. Don't worry, I didn't come close, let alone go inside." Lady Sun pursed her lips and her facial expression became difficult to look at. "With the Jinyue's ability, it wouldn't be difficult for them to find that place if they followed you." Nanny Kui fell to her knees with a thud and cried out, "Young mistress, it's all my fault, I shouldn't have acted on my own, it's me who caused you harm." Zheng soon sighed and helped her up. "Get up, you were just trying to look out for me in your own way, there's nothing wrong with that. It should have been a perfect plan, but who knew it would come to such an end? It seems my retributions is about to come." Nanny Kui rose in anger, "What retribution? Zheng Cheng deserved what he got. How dare he treat you like this? He would have died even without your involvement. That Wei Niang and Zheng Ji was intent on killing him." As they were talking, they heard a sharp knock on the door. "Young mistress." Young mistress. Shan Cha's voice came from outside. Nanny Kui hastily wiped her tears away and stood up, turning around and shouting, "What is it?" "The Marquis has sent someone to ask the young mistress to come and see him, saying that there's something he needs to ask the young mistress," Shan Cha said, exasperated. Nanny Kui's expression changed completely as she turned to ask Lady Sun, "Young mistress, did the Marquis find out?" In contrast, Lady Sun had the sort of calmness born from being ready for the worst situation that could come. She turned around to face the mirror and stroked the hair on the side of her face. Currently, she was wearing mourning apparel for Zheng Cheng just like everyone else in the house. She was dressed plainly, but then she took a jeweled hairpin off the dressing table, put it in her hair and turned toward Nanny Kui to ask, "Did I put it on right?" Madame Kui stared at her in confusion. With a faint smile, Lady Sun didn't seem to care about the other party's answer either. She stood up and said to Nanny Kui, "Go on and open the door." Nanny Kui came back to her senses, then threw herself down to hug her thigh. She exclaimed, "You can't. Don't go. Don't. Let me bear this alone. I will tell them that it's me. I did it all. You don't have to say anything." Lady Sun helped her up and said, "Stop talking. Just stay in this room and don't go anywhere. I'll deal with this." When she arrived at the reception hall, she saw that several people had been sitting there. The Marquise of Wu'an had taken ill due to excessive grief from her son's death. She hadn't been able to get up that day and therefore was not amongst the people there. This time around, not only was the eldest son Zheng Cheng was dead, but even the Marquis of Wu'an's favorite son was sent to exile. The reputation of the Marquis of Wu'an's estate has been plummeting for 1,000 zhang from all the scandals. Zheng Ying hadn't collapsed yet, but he looked about a dozen years older than before. His visage was that of one that had gone through great changes from too much stress. Upon hearing the arrival of Tang Fan and Sui Zhou, the Marquis of Wu'an's facial expression was extremely ugly. He had already lost 2 sons in a row. He was only hoping that things would come to an end and nothing further would happen. However, things were developing contrary to his wishes. These two blackening his door again and moreover asking to see Lady Sun directly. If he couldn't guess as to what was that inferring, then he'd really be an idiot. The Marquis of Wu'an said, "I just want to ask you two to tell me the truth. Does my daughter-in-law have something to do with Zheng Cheng's death?" As things had already come to this point, Tang Fan didn't see the point of keeping it from him. "We do indeed have that suspicion." Then the eyes of the Marquis of Wu'an suddenly lit up. "If that is so, what of Ji Er? Wouldn't it mean that he was wrongly accused?" Tang Fan shook his head and said, "The proof that second master Zheng Ji is guilty of murdering his brother is conclusive. He wasn't wrongly accused. It simply meant that there is more than one murderer." The Marquis of Wu'an still refused to believe that his son killed his own brother even now. Upon hearing what Tang Fan said, he smiled wretchedly and said, "It looks like the two of you come here today with the intention of completely ruining my Zheng family." Tang Fan cupped his hand and said, "The Marquis words are very strong. All things have causes and effects. We are merely fulfilling our duties. As a father, surely the Marquis would want to know the truth about his son's death." At the mention of Zheng Cheng, the Marquis of Wu'an finally stopped speaking. His gaze merely drifted away. His expression was miserable, as if his eyes couldn't see either Tang Fan and Sui Zhou anymore. It was hard to guess what exactly was he thinking about. Ever since their group have entered the Marquis of Wu'an's estate, each time the atmosphere was depressing and gloomy. That was to be expected though. One of the Marquis' son was dead and the other one was sent into exile with nobody knows how long it will take to possibly get him a pardon. Anyone who had gone through with the same experience wouldn't be able to bear it, so it wasn't surprising that the Marquis have continuously opposed any further investigation from the start. In all likelihood, he had long anticipated something like this would happen. But then again, if it weren't for his attempts in keeping the matter a secret and coerce Pan Ben to close the case hastily, then Wang Ji wouldn't have been enticed to get involved. With all the involved parties trying to be contrary and contending with each other, the whole sordid truth was in turn brought into light. In the end, it seems that many things in this world were inexorably tied by some sort of invisible thread twisting around and around until they ultimately returned to the original point. When Lady Sun came in and saw them, she looked utterly calm and her demeanor didn't show any sign of panicking. She bowed to the Marquis as proper as ever, her whole countenance was that of a virtuous married woman. The Marquis of Wu'an sighed and said, "Go on and ask your questions." "Thank you for your kindness." Tang Fan first saluted the Marquis and then turned towards Lady Sun and asked, "Did you kill Zheng Cheng?" "How can you say this, Master Tang?" was Lady Sun's reply. "Is the Shuntian prefecture duty included splashing dirty water on people's head?" Her tone was gentle, light, and clear of sarcasm, as if she was only asking a rhetorical question. Tang Fan said, "When Huaniang and Zheng Chen was planning to kill Zheng Cheng, you noticed it and secretly helped them by getting the pharmacy worker to help them and tampered with his Fuang Chun medication. But this medicine was too slow to show effects and it might not necessarily ended up killing Zheng Cheng. The most possible it could do was make him sterile. You have waited for a long time but never got the result you wanted. So, you couldn't resist contacting Feng Qingzi to get her to do the deed herself. Afterward, to ensure that Feng Qingzi would not betray you, you hold her only brother hostage? You wanted to kill Zheng Cheng but you didn't want anyone to know about it. That's why you need someone who could take advantage of him while he was asleep to hit his Beihu acupuncture point with a hammer. This is indeed a very good method and there are not many people who could do this without being detected. Feng Qingzi happened to be included among them. The Beihui acupuncture is located at the top of the head and is covered with hair. An average person wouldn't easily take notice of this area but back when I first saw Zheng Cheng's body, his hair was undone. By the time the corpse arrived at the Northern Administrative Court Division, his hair was suddenly combed up. You have wanted to further conceal the evidence yet hadn't foreseen that it was what would give you away. When we investigate the Huanyi Tower, their head courtesan Miss Qingzi did confess that she was the one who killed Zheng Cheng. Further investigation on her led us to the mansion she had bought where we advertently found several funeral tablets. From there, we learned that Miss Qingzi's original surname was Feng and that her family was implicated by having family relations to the rebel Feng Zilong 13 years ago. The whole family perished aside from two members, one was her and the other was her third brother Feng Qingguan. She ended up working as a brothel worker while her brother being male was supposedly banished into the army. It just happened that 13 years ago, there was flooding of the Yellow River at Henan, and people have to be sent to create a river dike. Feng Qingguan happened to be in the group of people the Count of Yingcheng got to help with that. Tang Fan was watching Lady Sun. After your attendant Madame Kui heard of Feng Qingzi's arrest, she feared that we would get the information out of Miss Qingzi's mouth and impatiently ran off to a place where she would normally not go to in order to check things out. This in turn led us to Feng Qingguan, which proves that all our previous speculations were correct. Lady Sun shook her head and said, "Master Tang, the praise that His Majesty has once bestowed upon you was in vain. As you said yourself, all of that was just your speculations. It's true that I have heard of Feng Qingzi before and that's because her brother works for my uncle. There's nothing strange there. However, she's a brothel worker and I am a daughter of a noble family, how could I get in contact with her? As for your claim that I am keeping her brother hostage, that was even more absurd. I'm guessing that none of you have questioned Feng Qingguan about anything on account that he doesn't know anything at all. You have to agree though that despite all the speculations, everything eventually ended being all about you. How are you going to explain that?" Tang Fan countered. After the Northern Administrative Court Division took Zheng Cheng's body, the Eastern Depot immediately went to take it and the very same night they did, the place where they kept the body in caught fire. Coincidentally, the supervising guard on duty that night was also someone who formerly worked for your uncle. There's also the fact that Feng Qingzi have suddenly able to raise 5,000 tael to redeem herself. One has to wonder, where could she have probably gotten that much money? As far as I know, your dowry of silver taels went to the Marquis of Wu'an's estate these years. First, young Master Cheng did not only frequent brothels but was also known to frequent gambling dens. Even if the Marquis estate was rich, it doesn't only have one single young master in it, so he would of course be prevented from squandering funds just like that. So, where did he get the money he was gambling with? He didn't ask you for this, so he could only get it from his mother, the Marchioness. For that reason alone, you won't be able to raise this much amount all at once, nor were you willing to borrow it from your birth family. And so, you pawned your own jewelries and got a total of 4,578 taels in silver. Where is that money now? Zheng Sun remained silent. Tang Fan continued, you gave the money to Feng Qingzi, who took it to a bank to make a banknote. She then took this banknote to the brothel madam to redeem herself. We got all of them on hand, including the gold and silver jewelries that you sent to the pawnbrokers. Would you like to have a look at them? The Marquis of Wu'an had just been sitting on his chair and listening without saying a word. When he heard what Tang Fan said at this point, he couldn't help pointing a hand to her and asked with gritted teeth, is it you? Is he telling the truth? With things reaching this far, what would be the point for Lady Sun to continue feigning innocent? With a pale complexion, she lifted her head and looked at everyone without the slightest trace of fear as she said, even if I didn't get involved, I am not the only one who wanted him dead. With an unprecedented agility, the Marquis of Wu'an jumped up and viciously slapped Lady Sun. Zheng Sun was of slender and weak stature. How could she withstand that physical attack? She promptly stumbled a few steps back and fell into a nearby pillar. He seethed in anger, how unfortunate for my Zheng family to have a son of mine married to a woman as venomous as you. To think that I had believed that you were being wronged. Lady Sun laughed coldly and said, you're wrong, father-in-law. My viciousness is because there's not a single good person in your Zheng family. When I had just been married into your family, I did want to serve my husband, show respect to my in-laws and pass my days nicely. But what kind of man did I marry? A good-for-nothing lecher who does nothing but play with women and go to brothels. He wasn't content to just play with them, he even brought them home, one after another. I'm the daughter from a respectable family, too. Did any of you leave me any face? People in the capital city claim that I am virtuous, but secretly, they are laughing at my incompetence to keep my husband from other women. The Marquis of Wu'an was distressed and infuriated as he roared, why didn't you tell me? Why not to tell your mother-in-law? We could have helped you get justice. Why did you need to go to this length? Lady Sun answered coldly, mother-in-law. All she would do is devise all possible ways to take all my wealth from me. Didn't you hear what Master Tang have said just now? She had taken all my dowry money cleanly and gave it to her son to gamble. I wanted to protect the estate, I wanted to keep the peace, but who was going to protect me? Who was going to ensure my security? I endured the first year, the second year, the third year. I have been patient year after year, but who was taking my patience seriously? Was I going to endure this hell pit for my entire life? She was in no rush to get up, just tilted her head to look straight at the Marquis of Wu'an so he could clearly see the disdain in her eyes. The stately Marquis of Wu'an. Completely losing the title that your grandfather earned was a given. You have condoned and spoiled your favorite concubine, letting her run amok on the estate. You turned a blind eye to the behavior of your miserable legal wife who was happy to support her son's ugly vices. You can't even raise a proper son, not the first nor the second. All you ever thought them was to be good-for-nothing haughty wealthy young master who were even capable of killing their own brother. What right do you have to condone someone else? You. The Marquis of Wu'an was so angry that he could not speak. With a hand over his chest, he took a couple of steps back until he collapsed down on his chair. Chapter end. The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 18. The plotter meets her disastrous end. Tang Fan sighed and said, Lady Sun, no matter for what reason, a murderer must pay with their life. Karma always comes around is a principle that one should always remember. You have to come with us to the prefecture. Zhang Sun smiled bitterly, pay with my life. Why is it that the wicked never get any retribution for their wickedness but instead force the good people into killing them to even out their evilness, yet the good people have to be punished for the crime? Master Tang, you do actually enforce the law impartially, but could you really arrest me with a clear conscience? Tang Fan responded to her, Zheng Cheng's lack of moral character does not justify you killing him. If you didn't like him, you could have asked for an annulment. There was no need for you to commit such an act. Lady Sun seemed to have heard some kind of joke as she sneered, annulment? The estates of the Count of Yingcheng and the Marquis of Wu'an were joined by this marriage. If Zheng Cheng didn't die, how could I be peacefully divorced from him? The Count of Yingcheng is my uncle, but if I didn't take it upon myself to kill Zheng Cheng, the Sun family wouldn't help me deal with the aftermath without the threat that I will implicate the whole family. Even the money that was used to purchase Feng King's house and to pay to redeem her from the brothel, it has to be scraped out of my own dowry. How could you not understand that I could only be free if he dies? Her face turned fierce as she continued, I have never thought I would ever be capable of such a loathsome deed. After all, I have strived to be a good person from my childhood to my adulthood. I wanted to be in a harmonious relationship when I got married, just like the example set out by our ancestors, but in the end, the heavens set me up with someone like Zheng Cheng. How could I not resent that? I put up with that kind of man for 5 years. Someone who make me feel nauseous by the mere sight of him. If you think I would plead guilty, think again. He deserved to die. Death would not absolve him of his sins. It's good that he's dead. Ha ha ha. Her laughter had not stopped yet when her body suddenly moved and she threw herself directly against the nearest pillar. Tang Fan shouted, it's no good. Someone stop her. Sui Zhou reacted quickly and immediately stepped towards her direction to hold her down. Unfortunately, it was too late. Due to the fact that men and women must observe appropriate distance between each other, Lady Sun kept a wide distance between herself and to where Tang Fan and Sui Zhou were sitting when she came to the reception hall. She was very decisive when she had taken action. Nothing can stop someone who was determined to die. Sui Zhou only managed to grab a corner of her sleeve. However, due to how powerfully fast Lady Sun moved, the grabbed sleeve of her robes tore off, but it did not deter her velocity in the slightest. With a muffled thud, Zhang Sun's body fell limply down to the floor alongside the pillar. Her skull cracked open as brain matter and blood flowed out together, vivid red on white. The ferocity of the force and the speed she used was self-evident. She died on the spot. The Marquis of Wu'an was stunned by this scene, unable to move from where he was sitting. All the servants stationed outside were in an uproar. Screams and shouts filled the whole courtyard. Nanny Kui rushed over only to catch sight of Lady Sun's corpse. She threw herself forward, wailing and howling. All of you forced the young mistress to her death. Ever since she married into the Zheng family, she paid respects to her in-laws every day despite of how miserable she was every single morning and how she trembled in fear every evening, wondering what she had done wrong to deserve this. Yet how did you all treat her? Zhen Ying, you're an old bastard and Madame Lu is an old hag. Neither of you taught your son properly. None of you deserve a good death. You are all wicked. In her inconsolable grief, she forgot all respect to their respective statuses. She pointed her fingers at the Marquis of Wu'an as she cursed him. Presumably due to the huge blow he had suffered just then, the Marquis of Wu'an could only stare blankly, permitting Nanny Kui to berate him hatefully without retorting back. Sui Zhou had been wanting to bring Lady Sun back for further interrogation but didn't expect that she would die here. She had confessed to the crime, but due to her noble status, they could not take her body back by force, or else the Count of Yingcheng's estate would likely refuse to let the matter lie. Suizhou and Tang Fan instructed the Northern Administrative Court Division and Shuntian Prefecture men respectively to survey and make the records of the events and then took their leave. The Marquis of Wu'an understandably did not have the energy to retain them, having suffered from blow after blow that he could not even stand up. He didn't even look at Tang Fan when they bid him goodbye. He remained sitting blankly where he was as the reception hall quaked with the sound of sobbing and wailing as more and more people gathered. No one could ever foresee that things would end up like this. Thinking of the scene of Lady Sun's suicide, Tang Fan couldn't help but sigh. The Marquis of Wu'an now have a dead son, a son in exile, and even his first daughter-in-law is now dead. He is now on his 50s. It's sad when old people have to bury the young ones. It's their whole family's fault that this happened to them. They deserved it. General Sui didn't like to speak, but this was Tang Fan he was talking to. He wasn't included amongst those contemporaries whom he couldn't be bothered to speak with. In the past, he looked down on those civil servants who could only whine and sigh. He felt that they were extraordinarily hypocritical. When they want to advance their position, all they do was fight with each other or walk all over each other, and don't even let him get started about those two-faced literary scholars. However, Tang Fan was different from them in every way. His actual comportments and actions make Suizhou change his view about civil officials. Compared to the traditional civil official like the Shuntian Prefecture Magistrate Pan Bin, working with someone like Tang Fan was undoubtedly much more satisfactory. More importantly, having collaborated in handling this case together gave them the foundation for a friendly relationship. He had developed an appreciation for Tang Fan's sensible and preemptive work ethics and extensive skills. Being well read was one thing, but to actually apply the knowledge that one gained was quite another matter. Someone with as much talents as Tang Fan would definitely have boundless prospects in the future. Working with someone like him was, of course, not a hardship at all. Upon hearing Suizhou's comment, Tang Fan let out another sigh and did not comment further. Was Lady Sun pitiful? Definitely. She was a delicate woman from a noble family, with good upbringing and well educated. If she had married a good gentleman, then everything would naturally go smoothly in her life and she would want for nothing. Instead, she was a bright pearl that was cast into darkness and end up marrying a wretched man like Zheng Cheng, who was blind to the treasure in front of him. Instead, he was a good-for-nothing lecher and gambler. It was said that men feared entering the wrong profession while women feared marrying the wrong sort of man, which would result with their whole lives being ruined. Even if Lady Sun didn't kill herself just then, her end wouldn't have been any better. The Marquis of Wu'an estate wouldn't let go of the daughter-in-law who plotted to kill her husband and would definitely pursue the matter to the bitter end. Meanwhile, the Count of Yingqing's estate would definitely abandon this niece in order to distance themselves from the situation. As for Zheng Cheng, was he despicable? Absolutely. Being married to this kind of man, the wife was certainly doomed to a lifetime of frustrations. Had Lady Sun had been a bit weaker, she would have continued to hold her breath and endure silently. However, she turned out to be soft on the outside but tough on the inside. Her husband was loathsome and promiscuous, her mother-in-law made things difficult for her and even spent her own dowry to pay for her husband's inappropriate spendings, while her father-in-law ignored the dismal affairs of his own household. Lady Sun endured until she couldn't anymore. She did not die in silence but instead blew up the silence. But, did that justify her murder of Zheng Cheng? For the sake of earning her freedom and reuniting with her younger brother, Feng Qingze was a woman who willingly became the sword in Zheng Sun's hand. She chose to commit suicide in order to save her brother, whose life was under Lady Sun's mercy. With no freedom to act on her own all her life, she was the most pitiful one. There was also Lin Xiaodong, the pharmacy worker whose whereabouts was still a mystery. He had most likely come to harm a long time ago, as no one would be concerned about the safety of a nobody like him. If Tang Fan and Suizhou went and inquire about him in the Count of Yingqing's estates, they would most likely deny all knowledge about it and shove all the blame on the head of the already dead, Lady Sun. His whereabouts would most probably remain unknown. There was also the almost forgotten servant girl Alin, who would have been charged with the murder of her lord's young master had it not been for Tang Fan and Suizhou, who had painstakingly peeled the layers of the case one after another. If Tang Fan was not currently an appointed official of the imperial court, he would have been free to sigh to his heart's content and sympathized with the weak. But in his position, he had the duty to uphold the law. The actual murderers, Zhengji and Huaniang, had to face the death penalty, and Lady Sun, as the mastermind behind the scene, naturally would not be able to escape judgment as well. The atmosphere at the Marquis of Wu'an estate was very heavy just then. When they have walked some distance away from the estate, only then did the two of them manage to breathe a sigh of relief for finally solving the case. Tang Fan stretched his back, the slight inelegant posture contrarily looked pleasant on him. He then languidly said, "The only positive thing about this case is that Alin would finally be cleared of all responsibility. Her original intent was to seduce Zheng Cheng. Her morals are highly suspicious," Suizhou commented. Tang Fan smiled and said, "Whether she is of good character or not has nothing to do with whether she should suffer an unjust accusation. Being nice to someone and convicting someone are similar in such a sense that it requires one to consider the action and not just the intent behind it. Take yourself as an example, General Sui. I knew from the beginning that you looked down on feeble civil official like myself. But if I base my decision on that and didn't determinately pursue a collaboration with you, wouldn't I be missing out a good friend today?" The present emperor of the Great Ming had gradually placed more importance on civil officials and less on martial posts. It meant that military officers of the same rank have to bow their heads in front of civil officials. Despite the might of the Jinyue, civil officials were typically apprehensive of them instead of admiring them. Tang Fan was the opposite and even offered Suizhou the position of a friend. What a wonderful man! Who would be upset at hearing something like that? It was no wonder that people say that amongst the palace honorates of the 11th year of Chenghua, even though he didn't get the number 1 rank, Tang Runking was the most well-known and made friends all over the realms. A reputation this good could not be denied. That was probably why Pan Bin, despite his flaws, still fought to get Tang Fan to become a prefect at the Shuntian prefecture, and not just because he was a junior disciple under the same mentor. Suizhou gave him a profound look and said, "Where is this minced pork noodle stall that I heard so much about?" Having been suddenly asked with a question which seemed to come from nowhere, Master Tang got a bit dazed. "Huh?" Suizhou continued, "Last time, you and Xueling were talking about this place you ate in." Tang Fan was pleasantly surprised upon understanding what he was talking about. "Do you like minced pork wontons, too? Come on then. Let's go. Let's go. I'll take you there. The stall not only have wontons but they have noodles in broth, too. The owner knows me. His soup base is different from other places in that it is made from meat bones that was boiled for 7 or 8 hours. It is especially authentic. If you go there often enough and get your face known by the owner, he'll even serve you a little bit more." When it comes to food, Master Tang was overjoyed to find a companion. He continued to coax the other man as he walked. The two men walked towards the north of the city, their footsteps gradually fading away. End of Arc 1, The Case of the Marquis Wu'an Estate. The 14th Year of Chenghua. Arc 2, The Days of Living with the Jinyue. Chapter 19. The Sought-After Prefect. The case of the Marquis of Wu'an Estate was completely concluded. Because of what Lady Sun had done, the families of the Marquis of Wu'an and the Count of Yingcheng became mortal enemies. Both families have filed petition before His Imperial Majesty and fought fiercely against each other, which forced the normally passive and slack emperor to actually listen to the case. Having developed a huge headache because of this, the emperor directly threw them over to the court cabinet to deal with. However, since the case was about internal family disputes, the cabinet did not want to manage this kind of bullshit and dodged it aside. For the sake of his exiled son, the Marquis of Wu'an had to beg Wangji, hoping that he would put in a good word before the emperor on his behalf so he could get Zhengji back sooner. When Wang Zhi saw that the Marquis of Wu'an was willing to bow his head to him, naturally he was also willing to go to the emperor to intercede on his behalf. With Wang Zhi's help, Zheng Ji's punishment of long life exile was ultimately reduced to 3 years banishment. But no one would have expected that on the third year, when Zheng Ji was supposed to receive his pardon, he suddenly contracted a serious illness which caused his violent death. There were rumors going around the capital that the Marquis of Wu'an sent someone to do Zheng Ji in as revenge for the death of her son Zheng Cheng. However, that was a story for another time. Meanwhile, the entire affair goes round and round on a circle with no one gaining anything except for the Western Depot. At the very beginning, Wang Zhi had wanted to use the incident to gain some merit and thus opposed the Marquis of Wu'an and insisted for a thorough investigation of the case. With the conclusion of the case, his purpose had been achieved. He had established his authority amongst the nobilities and he didn't even need to exert any personal effort in it. Eunuch Wang was quite satisfied. With all that has been said and done, it was an absolutely given that the Marquis of Wu'an did not wish to ever see Tang Fan and Sui Zhou again for a very, very long time. Even though the two of them had only acted in accordance to their duties, it was because of them that the Marquis of Wu'an estate had been stirred into a pandemonium. In all likelihood, the Marquis would always feel a pain in his heart whenever he remembered the names of those two in the future. The event wasn't completely devoid of any benefits for other parties involved though. At the very least, Sui Zhou received commendations from his superior officers due to his competent handling and outstanding performance in this case. It was said that his immediate superior, Commander Zhou Qinhu, intended to promote him in the near future. In comparison to that, Tang Fan's was somewhat obscure. Generally, the promotion of civil officials was slower compared to that of the military ones. That was because military merits were tangible while political achievements had many tricks to them, like that of turnips to its own suitable hole. Being only in his early 20s and already a 6th-rank official was already a fate that was envied by many people. Dealing with such cases was within his duties, and if he got promoted for every well-handled case, then there wouldn't be enough official positions he could fill in. With him being officially a 4th-place exam taker, he should have been still simmering in the Imperial Hanlin Academy at this time. Although it was dull and dry, it would have been a noble position in the eyes of the others, and when the time came, he could go from the academy straight into a position in the 6 ministries, then right into a cabinet position. That was the path that was usually treaded by a future cabinet minister. Instead, he skipped the 9th, 8th, and 7th rank positions in the academy and joined the Shuntian prefecture to work with. To some people, this move seemed foolish and akin to self-sabotage because only palace honorates that couldn't get a position in the Imperial Hanlin Academy needed to be transferred elsewhere to be an official. However, he chose to start his career from the local magistrate. If Tang Fan cared about all of these though, he would not have agreed to Pan Bin's request for him to join the Shuntian prefecture to become a prefect in the first place. Some things would always need someone to work on them. How could one understand the country and how to govern it if they didn't get exposed and experienced all sorts of situation? When the great Ming Dynasty was first established, most of the important ministers in the court came from the state eunuchs and not from the honorates of the imperial exams. It meant that they might be practical and talented, however, they were full of schemes. In the wake of the maturity of the imperial examination system, the government post gradually fell to all exam takers. This was how the hidden rule that only those that came from the Imperial Hanlin Academy could hold a cabinet position. In any ways, no matter what others might feel on the matter, Tang Fan himself merely smiled about it, then proceeded to go to work in the morning and return home in the evening as usual. If there was something that Master Fang considered as a problem, that would be the fact that people seemed to be determined to match him with a wife, especially recently. Tang Fan was a palace honorate who had been given a position in the Imperial Hanlin Academy. He was a promising youth with endless prospects for the future. So long as he didn't make a mistake of taking his brain out of his head, even if he has to climb into the position step by step from his civil servant post, ending up as a third-rank assistant minister would never be an issue. As for his private life, although he didn't own a carriage nor a house, his appearance was outstanding, and having lost both his parent, marrying him would mean that the bride would have no in-laws to worry about, and thus, can look forward to a household that was free of the usual conflicts involving in-laws. One would not find a better prospect than him as a husband or a son-in-law. Although during the reign of the Ming Dynasty, it was no longer a norm to snatch a husband out of imperial honorates. However, the good combination of conditions attributed to Tang Fan since he made it to the list of the imperial honorates 3 years ago made him an ideal target for countless matchmakers who all came knocking at his door seeking to match him up with daughters of notable families. There was even no shortage of court officials and noble families amongst them. After he formally became a disciple of Qi Jun, even Qi Jun expressed his wish to betroth him to his youngest daughter. In the creation of a grand tale, Tang Fan agreed to the match and even invited his already married older sister to come over to the capital to lend a hand in handling the betrothal matters. Unfortunately, the two weren't betrothed for long before Jianjun's youngest daughter suddenly died of illness shortly after she had reached the marriageable age. The matchmakers knew of course that it would be in bad taste should they show eagerness to go looking for a new family to match him up again, and therefore, the matter have ended up getting delayed for some time. However, it seemed that as of late, the numbers of daughters reaching marrying age might have been increasing day by day. Either that or the murder case at the Marquis of Wu'an estate have somewhat made Tang Fan famous, reminding everyone that there was this ideal son-in-law candidate. In Liu Lane, it was normal for him to be accosted by a number of matchmakers. Fed up by such disturbances, Tang Fan had no choice but to escape by frequently going out. Thankfully, he needed to come over to the bureau every day for the morning roll call, giving him not much time to remain at home during the day. He had been managing to evade them this way. While avoiding strangers and outsiders were one thing, avoiding the neighbors was another thing. On this day, Tang Fan was returning from the bureau when saw someone from the Li family next door was waiting by his courtyard door. He noticed that it was not Asya who usually came over but the family's steward, Lao Li. Upon seeing him, Lao Li greeted him with a smile. As he bowed his head, he said, "Master Tang, you're back. I was waiting for you." "Oh? Is something the matter?" he asked casually. "No, nothing's wrong," Lao Li quickly answered. "Our mistress would like to pay you a visit and have sent me over to ask for when Master Tang have some free time." Tang Fan smiled and said, "We are neighbors. There's no need to stand on ceremonies about this. If there's something that Madame Li needed to see me for, then I can just go over." Lao Li smiled apologetically and said, "If Master Tang would so oblige, then please follow this lowly one." Soon after, Lao Li welcomed him into the Li residence hall, ordered someone to serve him tea, asked him to wait for a moment, then ran to report to the madam of the house. A short while later, Madame Zhang of the Li family walked in, followed by 2 maids. It stood to reason that Tang Fan being an official and them being common citizen, she should be the one bowing to him. However, he was renting his courtyard from the Li family, which gave them the relationship of a tenant and the landlady. Moreover, their relationship amongst each other was quite amiable, and therefore, such formalities need not to be strictly observed. And so, they merely took each other's seat after exchanging a few pleasantries. Madame Zhang smiled and said, "I should have gone and visit Master Tang during daytime but have ended up inviting you so late in the day. Please accept my apologies." Tang Fan silently sweated. He was consciously avoiding those matchmakers who come over during the day. How could he stay at home at daytime? Madame Li need not be so polite. Though I have no idea why would the madam needed to see me. Madame Zhang got a bit awkward. It's somewhat of an abrupt matter. Truthfully speaking, this old one is being impetuous, so before I continue, I must ask that Master Tang not take offense. Does this have to do with the rent? Tang Fan pondered. Madame Zhang laughed and said, "Master Tang is mistaken. The amount of your rent is as fair as it could be. Wouldn't it be unkind of me to raise it all of a sudden? It's actually about an auspicious reason. My Asya has been raised by my side since childhood and she has been like a daughter to me. I am aware that with her status, it's absolutely impossible for you to take her as a legal wife, but she strongly admires Master Tang. That's why I've strengthened this old face of mine to ask if it would be possible for Master Tang to accept her and keep her by your side to serve you as you deemed fit. Asya was then seen to be standing near Madame Zhang. Her cheeks were pink due to shyness and bashfulness. Tang Fan was speechless. What kind of luck have he had lately? He had done his best to avoid being in such situation only to end up exactly in that position. Seeing that Tang Fan remained silent, Madame Zhang asked, was Master Fang having difficulty accepting this request? Men could have multiple wives and concubines, that had been the case since time immemorial. It was not shameful for him to take a concubine even before he got himself a wife. Even if he accepted Asya, it was still within his rights to have other women. How many men would reject a maid from a reputable family who would also be a concubine at the same time? Moreover, they were offering of their own accord? For Tang Fan, this would be like adding flowers to an already beautiful embroidery with no effort from his end at all. But to Madame Zhang's surprise, he still refused. Whether it was taking a wife or accepting a concubine, I have no intention of neither for the time being. I'm still very young and should pay attention to learning and furthering my career. I don't want to be distracted by other responsibilities, so I hope that Madame Li could forgive me. Madame Zhang was stumped as she pressed. Master Tang was truly unwilling. Tang Fan shook his head and said, I'm sorry. His refusal was explicit, so what else could be done? It's not as if they could force him. Madame Zhang glanced at Asya and saw that her previous look of bashfulness was gone. She had gone silent, her face pale and her eyes were glistening with tears. She sighed mentally and smiled. Something like this requires mutual willingness. Since Master Tang was not accepting, this old one will not insist further. How about you have a meal at our humble home before you go, Master Tang? Little Lin hasn't seen you for a long while and misses you dearly. Tang Fan stood up and smiled. I can't. I have already eaten somewhere else. It's getting late, so I should head back. I'll be taking my leave. After his departure, Madame Zhang said helplessly to Asya. As you can see, it's not that I'm unwilling to help you, but it's just that Master Tang's mind is genuinely set. There's nothing I can do. Asya wiped off her tears as she said, Yes, Madam. It was this maid's bad luck despite the Madam's kind intervention. However, if there are things that needs to be delivered next door in the future, I ask that you find someone else to do it. This maid is humble in status, but after getting rejected by him today, I won't have the face to go to his door again. Madame Zhang sighed and patted her hand and said, It is most probably that the two of you are not fated to be. Forget it. When an opportunity comes, I'll definitely keep you in mind. I intend to find good husbands for you all, but you'll need to lower your sights a little bit. The Li family's status is just enough to set you free and become a madam of a small household someday. This maid only wishes to serve the madam for now, Asya said softly. Knowing that it was only reasonable that Asya wouldn't be alright so soon, Madame Zhang consoled her some more and gave her time for her to slowly figure things out on her own. Even so, the recent conversation with Tang Fan made Madame Zhang unhappy herself. After dinner, she urged her son to study well, then had him return to his own courtyard. Ah Chun and the others noticed her low spirit and asked, Is the madam unwell? Does it have something to do with Master Tang? Madame Zhang nodded, then shook her head and sighed. There are men in this world who were not content with having only one woman, so it's only natural that there would be men opposite of that. Men like Master Tang is rare though. Asya couldn't help but muttered, He was probably looking down on my lowly birth status, that is all. Madame Zhang smiled and said, I don't think Master Tang is that kind of person at all. Maybe the one he is fated to be with just didn't exist anymore. I heard he had been betrothed to the daughter of a chancellor at the Imperial Hanlin Academy a few years ago, but before they could get married, she suddenly perished from illness. Maybe he has not forgotten about her yet. You don't need to avoid eating just because you are afraid of choking, you know. Ah Chun was some years older than Asya, and she knew that the madam's sighs and melancholy was likely because the situation reminded her of her own affairs. Just as expected, Madame Zhang spoke after a while. When I first married into the Li family, that man also told me that it was enough to have me as his wife in all of his life, but now he has someone else. She shook her head again and continued, my barrenness was to be blamed for this. I really can't blame him. Madame Zhang had been married into the Li family for decades but failed to give birth to a son or a daughter. Over time, the color of old age frosted her face. The family patriarch Li Man inevitably went to seek out other women to bear him children. Thus, Li Lin, who was currently being raised by Madame Zhang in the household, was actually not her biological son but was born from Li Man's concubine. It's no wonder that Madame Zhang was so moved by the scene that she made such an exclamation. Ah Chun hurriedly consoled her. Asya also set aside her own worries for the time being and comforted the madam together with Ah Chun until they have finally consoled her into resting for the night. Since that day when he politely declined Madame Zhang's kindness, Tang Fan did not saw Asya again and even avoided walking next to her as much as he could. Asya seemed to have the same idea, as the one who started delivering food over to Tang Fan's house was replaced with Adong. Adong was a young girl of about 8 years old whose face was still plumb with childishness. She was very cheerful and loved to chat. Tang Fan was more than happy to talk with her. Being not an expert in love affairs, Tang Fan really had no interest in associating with someone who was interested in him, anyways. After delivering to his house a few times, he and Adong became familiar with one another. She liked food as much as he did, so whenever she brought a snack over, he would happily share some of whatever she brought over with her. Without standing on any ceremonies at all, she would even happily eat more than half of what she brought over. On this day, however, when Tang Fan came back home, he saw the little girl sitting with her chin on her hand right by his courtyard gate. She was staring at the snack in front of her, but this time, her eyes lacked its usual interest with food. Instead, she looked rather miserable. Chapter end.